All right, we have a convicted president on a sham trial. We have Biden flopping and failing in the polls. We have so many big stories going on. To help me go through them, I have with me Trent Staggs. Trent, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, great to be with you, Stephen.
So just so my audience knows, Trent Staggs is a mayor here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he is running to replace Senator Mitt Romney, which for me is really, really great news. And I'm excited to help him get across the finish line and go be a conservative senator for all of the Republicans that watch my show. The first thing that I wanted to jump in with you on is in the past few days, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said America needs to provide a pathway to citizenship for the 20 or so million illegals, or else we can't have a good life anymore. So we have Joe Biden flooding the country with illegal immigrants, and we have Chuck Schumer openly admitting that he wants to give them full citizenship. Is this a plan to tip the scales in Democrats' favor for future elections, or what are your thoughts on this topic?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, this has been by design. This is something that they've allowed to happen, they being the Biden administration, the woke left, Democrats, because they're tired of waiting. They don't want to keep waiting and seeing if they might be able to ultimately gain, majorities in the legislative bodies and also in the White House. So they want to force it in, and it is a huge number. When we talk about this, I mean, the population of my state, Utah, 3.2 million people. We've seen 3 times that population set just come in since the Biden administration has just opened the borders. So it's a top issue. I hear it on the campaign trail, border, budget. Those are the top 2 issues, frankly. And so we've got to get this addressed. I've even seen ramifications in my own community.
You're a mayor. I'm sure you've seen everything that the mayor of New York is dealing with. And yet, as bad as I feel for New York, he's been encouraging illegals to come there because he'll put them up in $700 a night hotel. He's giving them monthly money. He's giving them free meals. He's saying, we're going to get you a job where you won't in other states. As a mayor, why would he be using so much of the city's tax money to prop up a population that illegally came into the country?
The best thing I can think of is he's got aspirations for other offices. And, that's one of the concerns that we have as conservatives is that although these are not, they're not citizens and they can't vote, not yet, although Democratic strongholds like New York are trying to give the ability to vote and have in some elections to illegal immigrants. But, it does count in the census. And so that's therein lies a big problem is that at the next census time at 2030, they're going to try to apportion House seats based on the total population in these areas to include millions and millions of illegal immigrants. And in a state like New York, where they've lost population, we've had more conservative states with realignment get more House seats. I think that's one of their goals too. Not only do they want a perpetual voting class, that a dependent culture on their style of government, but they want to have bigger representation. And so that's one of the things that I can think of, and something that has been called out that I'm concerned with, that these 10, 20 million, whatever, illegal immigrants, they although they may not be able to vote yet, they do count in the census for apportionment of representatives.
Now that's like the opposite problem that we have in Utah. We are growing like a weed. We can't keep up with the growth. So many people are coming here. They like the conservative values. They like that it's clean. They like that you can raise a family. We don't need to be flooded with illegals because we are, I believe, the number 1 creator of new population among the 50 states. And in Utah, we love our immigrants. We do. We're a nation of immigrants, but we want them to come here legally. Would you support President Trump on closing the border, using the military if necessary, and revamping the immigration policies?
Yeah, 100%. We need to close the border. We need to remain in Mexico. We need e-verify, and we got to cut off benefits to illegal immigrants. I mean, the hotel rooms and all these benefits that have been given, that would effectively shut it down, in my view. You'd have many self-deport. If they're not going to come in the right way, I wholeheartedly agree with Schumer, what you just stated at the beginning of this segment. Look, those people that have willfully violated our law, they cannot just be given citizenship status and given a pathway to do it. No, they can go back from where they came, follow our law and our process. We do have a defined process. We are a nation of many people that, have come here legally, have immigrated legally. They've been willing to assimilate, become part of our culture, and that's fine. I love to be able to admit people like that. In fact, I'm on their side. I don't think it should take 10 to 12 years on average it's been taking for people to get legal citizenship and pay tens of thousands of dollars to immigration attorneys. But what we can't have is we can't reward illegal behavior, which is what the Biden administration, these Democrats are doing. They're just opening it up. And even in Utah, we do have a bit of a problem. I mean, I met with the Salt Lake City field office director for ICE, for Immigration Custom Enforcement. They're working almost 150,000 active cases right now in our state.
Wow.
150,000. And they actually put out a memo last May declaring Utah as a sanctuary state, just kind of on a de facto basis. Although the fact is that Utah politicians haven't gone out like some in New York and others. They have considered themselves sanctuary cities and profess that. But the policies that they've been implementing by giving driver's license to illegal immigrants, by giving in-state tuition to them, by paying for some medical costs, a lot of these policies and not cooperating with ICE as much as they should, it really resulted in that designation that they put out last May. It's a big problem. It's got huge impacts to our educational system, where you have so many people that are tying up the time of teachers. One of the high schools near my community, I think 20% of the student body population now are all illegal immigrants that have just come in recently. And that has a huge impact on our teachers' ability to teach those that are here as legal citizens, let alone spending all their time now with folks that have English as a second language. It affects crime, and our crime statistics are up. And I think it also affects our housing. And that's one of the least talked about things is, housing affordability and availability. When you've got 150,000 people that are illegally in my state, and the average household size, say, 4 people or so, that's tens of thousands of housing units. I mean, they've got to live somewhere, right? And that could otherwise go to other legal residents, and that's having an impact with respect to housing availability and therefore affordability.
Yeah, I'm actually dealing with that myself. My 12-year-old came home from junior high a couple months ago, said, I'm really struggling in class. I said, can't you work with your teacher? Do you need me to go and advocate for you? And she said, the teacher doesn't have any time because she is always dealing with students that don't speak English.
Right.
I said, what are you talking about? Like Spanish speaking students? She said, no, they're from Asian countries and African countries. Nobody even knows what language they speak. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so it's not even an English-Spanish situation, which we're used to in Utah. It's all of these other languages that, and again, it is tying up the school systems. Another thing I wanted to go over with you is, Donald Trump has been hit with, I think, more lawsuits than any other person maybe on planet Earth. They tried to remove him from our neighbor, Colorado. Over in Illinois, over in the state of Maine. They've been manipulating this stuff down in Florida. And now the judge just this morning is saying, wait a minute, I don't even know if Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has the proper authority to do this. Many legal scholars are saying anything that comes against him is going to be won on an appeals process. With everything that's going on with Trump, why do you think Biden continues to sink in popularity? What are the things that are against Biden that is making him so unpopular?
Well, you look at what he's done the past 3.5 years, the border that we were just talking about, That's made him unpopular. I think Bidenomics, I've gone around the state and talked to people, done 100+ town halls. The impact on Utahns with respect to inflation, they're paying $10,000 to $12,000 more per year just for the average family in our state. That's a huge impact. And so, he's responsible for all of this. The lawfare too that he's conducting against the former president, as you just pointed out. I mean, you're right. I'm not aware of any person, let alone former elected official, that's had to endure all that President Trump has had to endure. And fortunately, it seems to be backfiring on the Biden administration. And we hope that President Trump wins in a landslide. Look, I've been endorsed by President Trump in the Senate run here in Utah. I wholeheartedly support him. I endorsed him last year at the outset of my run. And I think we need his strength back in office now more than ever. He was quite successful with all the policies he implemented. We had less than $2 a gallon gasoline. If we stop printing money, and we have energy dominance and cheap, super abundant energy costs, that's going to take care of inflation. It's going to get us back to a great economy. He's proven to do that. He had great Supreme Court nominations, goes on and on. He helped rescue one of my own Riverton residents from a situation in Venezuela and brought him home. And so that's, really why I've been a strong supporter of President Trump. And he has had to endure things here. I mean, to me, it's despicable. I came out and spoke very strongly about this supposed conviction, last week, where these 34 charges, just manufactured stuff against him. It's just crazy to me what's going on and how the legal system has been weaponized by a corrupt DA who made it a point politically to go out and he said he wanted to really go after President Trump. Why this has been allowed to happen, I think, and this is what I said to many in the media when I was asked for comment, this is the greatest single example of election interference and election fraud in our nation's history. This is exactly what the left is doing. They were all worried about election interference from Russia. That was a big Russia hoax, as we know. It was pointed out by Kash Patel and Congressman Devin Nunes and many great people there that uncovered it. But this is an actual case of election interference and election fraud perpetrated by the left. They want to try to take President Trump off the ballot. You just mentioned in Colorado and elsewhere other states, and now they're trying to do it through lawfare with all these novel legal theories and cases that they're bringing forward. So it has to stop. We need him back in office, but we got to have people that are going to support him, like I will in the Senate, so that we can drain the swamp and get this country back on track.
I liked your point about quit printing so much money and become energy dominance. Those two moves in the first 100 days of a new Trump presidency, a new Senate, would be absolutely incredible. I looked up this morning, Trent, and Donald Trump has been indicted more times than mobster Al Capone. This is bad, right? And then they now you have George Soros' son saying refer to Trump as a felon as often as you can, and you have to start wondering, was this their plan the whole time? Was to label him so that every time they talk about him, oh, felon this, felon that, felon this, On top of that, I also looked up, and President Biden's approval rating right now is right around 35%, according to major polls. It's the lowest any president has been in our lifetime. As bad as things were under Bush or Obama or Clinton, they were never this low. I mean, this guy is really, really unliked. And yet somehow he's the most popularly elected person in American history. And as we're starting to see, he got a lot of ballots. We're not sure how many votes, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm so glad that Mitt Romney is gone, that you hopefully will be replacing him. He was voted into office based on Utah values, conservative values, and yet he went to Washington, D.C., and it seems like he undermined President Trump at every turn. You've now been fully endorsed by the Utah GOP. President Donald Trump. You have my endorsement here today. What are the things that you think you could do alongside Senator Mike Lee of Utah to really make a difference in Utah and also in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, well, thank you, first of all. Appreciate the endorsement. And yeah, it's been fantastic. I launched my candidacy May 23rd last year with the stated goal of primarying Mitt Romney because I didn't want him anymore to represent the state. As you pointed out, he stabbed President Trump in the back, many times. He campaigned 5.5 years ago on balanced budget, end illegal immigration, stop federal spending and overreach, and confirm conservative justices to the court. And that just simply wasn't his record. He sided with Biden 60+% of the time. It was ridiculous that we had somebody like that representing Utah. So we went out there and stated that we wanted to primary him, and that's why we received so much support from national conservatives or conservatives across the country and here in our own state. So I think getting back there with Senator Mike Lee, we can do things right away. Number one, what I pledged to do is to join the Freedom Caucus equivalent in the Senate, which is called the Executive Steering Committee. There are only 18 of the 49 Republicans that are part of that right now. So that's the problem. We need to have a majority within our own caucus. We got to stop electing people that just have R's next to their name. So once we have the majority within our own caucus, we'll do the very first order of business is to elect a Senate majority leader when we get the majority back. That is not Mitch McConnell. I know he said that he's not going to seek leadership post, but we can't have his handpicked successor, a Mitch McConnell 2.0, if you will. That's important because Mike Lee's been railing against what he calls the firm, the two leadership from the Senate and the House. 4 people go back in a back room. They cobble together 1,000-page plus pieces of legislation and a budget, slap it on the desks of members of Congress and say, you've got 24 hours to pass this or the government's going to shut down. Well, so be it. If we need to shut it down to get back to process. So we get a Senate majority leader that's going to abide by process, especially budgetary process, which says there's 12 appropriation subcommittees and each one needs to produce its own budget with opportunity for debate and amendment. And that's what we elect people for. Let's do our job. Congress needs to do its job. And by getting back to that process, it sounds a little bit boring and kind of in the weeds, but that will enable us to balance the budget instead of doing these continuing resolution omnibus spending bills. If we get back to that process, that's the first thing I want to do with Mike Lee and other members of this executive steering committee. We can balance it, which we haven't done since 2001. We haven't had a balanced budget. And so many of the last several years have been these continuing resolutions that just continue to dig us deeper in the hole. When I announced my candidacy, we were 32 trillion in debt. We're now over 35 trillion in debt. It's a joke. It's absolutely immoral what we're doing to our children and successive generations. So we can do that with Mike Lee straight away. Mike Lee has another great piece of legislation called the REINS Act, REINS. You got to rein in the federal government. I mean, Congress has allowed these unelected bureaucrats, like folks at the DEA, the EPA, DEA, others, FDA, they're writing 100,000 pages of rules every year, 100,000 pages that have the binding effect of law. That's unconstitutional. That needs to stop happening. They can propose rules, but it has to come back to elected officials. Elected officials have to pass the law. And if we're forced to do that, that's going to significantly reduce the amount of regulation every single year, which, by the way, this regulation is having a $4 trillion or more impact on our economy. It costs the average employer about $20,000 just to come into compliance for every employee with all this federal regulation and nonsense. So it's a huge crippling effect on our economy we have to unshackle. The REINS Act will help get us there. We're very close to getting that over the finish line. And then, of course, the border that we talked about. Support President Trump right away. Border wall, remain in Mexico, e-verify, no more benefits for illegal immigrants.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Okay. That all sounds amazing. And I know just from living in Utah that we practice what we preach, and you guys are going to do everything you can. It's been nice to watch Mike Lee maybe come out of the shadows and be more in the forefront. He has such a brilliant mind. Mm-hmm. And so I'm excited to see the two of you working together for families and conservative values. Trent, I had one more question. I'll get you out on this. today, trending on Twitter is President Biden's cognitive abilities. It's going viral. I guess a White House aide leaked that Biden can't remember what's happening in meetings. In closed door meetings, he's falling asleep. In key meetings, he's confused. He's mixing up names, forgetting what is happening in different countries, whether they are friends or foes. How dangerous is it to have the head of the country, the head of the military, the person holding the nuclear football, unable to go from meeting to meeting on a daily basis and not have cognitive clarity?
It's a huge problem, and one, quite frankly, that's contained within the Constitution, that we could actually, with him not being incompetent, it requires a very high level of energy, a very competent person to be in this role, and he has not demonstrated that for some time. I mean, just a couple of years back, I don't even remember the Easter egg roll at the White House, the Easter bunny having to come out and direct. I was actually there with my family that day. We were there at the White House, and to see that, and then to see him continue to be having to be directed everywhere he goes. I mean, it's problematic for our country to have somebody at that position that has a lot of challenges, and I think it's sad. I think it's a little bit shameful the way in which his wife should, I think, be maybe helping with that situation a little more so. I mean, I don't think that it's doing him any good to continue to prop him up, all those people that are around him in this way, and for him to be thinking that he could, given the challenges he's already experienced the last 3 years, that the next 4 years that we think would be any better, I think we're fooling. He's just fooling everybody. So that's why I'm wholeheartedly supporting President Trump. We need him back in office. We've got to have his strength back in there on the world stage. We've had all these situations erupt with respect to foreign wars. Again, we didn't have that under President Trump. So that's why we need him back in there for the great policies that he implemented, from energy and our economy, but also just on the world stage. America needs to be back in that position of strength that he will provide.
Yeah, I mean, we have this horrible humanitarian crisis war in Ukraine, and between Russia and Ukraine, the Gaza-Israel situation. I mean, they're throwing rallies in England to try to get Trump reelected. Like him or not, he showed a certain dominance and power that the world respected, and with a little bit of unpredictability, right? Like, they didn't know what he was going to do. You don't go take out the general of Iran. Well, he did, right? The guy had killed too many American soldiers, and so we need that strength back on the world stage, not somebody falling off the stage or up the stairs or down the stairs. So I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to having Trump back in office. I'm looking forward to you replacing Mitt Romney, working with Mike Lee and other freedom fighters in Washington, D.C. Trent, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can I put a link down below that tells a little bit more about your campaign and how to support you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just at TrentStaggs.com.
Okay.
STAGGS, TrentStaggs.com. We've been really humbled by all the support that we received, not just in Utah, but across the country. I mean, people are very, very motivated to replace Mitt Romney with a true conservative and somebody that will go back there and represent, the entirety of the nation with respect to conservative, constitutional conservative voting record and principles. And that's what we've committed to do.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll put that link down below. I wish you luck, and thank you for coming on.